They say the most dangerous moments in life don't arrive with thunder or warning, they slip in quietly, disguised as something ordinary. A knock on the door. A hand brushing against yours. A glance that lingers a second too long. That's how it started for me. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't looking for it. But in one night, my entire sense of loyalty and love was tested. In the quiet hills of Asheville, North Carolina, where the Blue Ridge Mountains roll like an endless wave, I lived in a cedarwood cabin that smelled faintly of lavender and loneliness. My name is Emily Hartman, and at 46, I had become used to silence. My second marriage to David, a corporate consultant who practically lived in airports, had settled into a rhythm of absence. 2 years together, and yet we felt more like polite roommates than husband and wife. No children, no pets, just the creak of wooden floors and the hum of my thoughts to fill the air. That October evening was like so many others. I cooked my usual dinner, pan-seared salmon, roasted vegetables, and a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. The kitchen glowed under the soft amber light, while a mellow jazz playlist whispered through the house. I sat at the table, staring at my plate more than eating from it, my fork tracing patterns in the food. 2 years of marriage, yet I felt like I was reading lines from a play I hadn't written, playing the devoted wife who had mastered the art of being alone. Then the doorbell rang. It startled me, sharp against the silence. Who would come by at 8:17 on a crisp October night, in the middle of nowhere? I padded across the hardwood floors, my bare feet cold as I peered through the peephole. My heart gave an unexpected lurch. Standing there was Noah, David's son from his first marriage. Tall, with tousled chestnut hair, a backpack slung casually over one shoulder, and a small suitcase at his feet. He was 25 now, a man, though the last time I'd seen him had been 9 months earlier during a tense Father's Day brunch. That night, in the glow of the porch light, his hazel eyes looked uncertain. "Emily," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. I was driving back from Charlotte and my car started acting up. Check engine light came on. Roadside assistance is backed up for hours. I was hoping I could crash here tonight. For a second, I froze, gripping the doorknob. My heart thudded strangely, not out of fear, but from something I didn't want to name. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "Come in. Do you want something to drink? Tea, wine, hot cocoa?" Noah gave a small smile. "Cocoa, if you've got it." That stopped me. He remembered. Dark cocoa was my private comfort, something I sipped on nights I read alone. I'd never told him, or anyone. "You remembered that?" I asked softly. "I noticed," he shrugged. "You'd make it when you were reading. Saw it a couple times." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it, and with it came a warmth I hadn't felt in years. I busied myself with the kettle, pretending not to notice how his presence filled the room. He sat by the window bench, his coat draped over the side, the jazz music wrapping around us. When I handed him the steaming mug, our fingers brushed. And that spark, it wasn't imagined. It was alive. Dangerous. We talked in fragments. He shared about his job as a graphic designer, the late nights, the stress, the apartment in Raleigh he could barely afford. I talked about my lavender garden, the mystery novel I was halfway through, the quiet routines of my days. But beneath it all, every pause, every glance, carried something unspoken. And when our eyes really met, it felt like he saw me. Not as David's wife. Not as a woman past her prime. But as Emily. Just me. Later, I excused myself to bed, leaving Noah with a pillow and blanket on the couch. But lying there in the dark, my thoughts spun like wildfire. Was this betrayal? Was it wrong to feel alive because of someone else's gaze? I told myself it was nothing. That morning would make it vanish. But the morning only made it stronger. At dawn, I padded into the kitchen, robe wrapped tight, brewing coffee like always. Noah appeared, his hair tousled from sleep, his t-shirt rumpled. He smiled softly. "You're up early." "Habit," I replied, setting another mug down for him. We stood across from each other, the kitchen island between us a barrier that felt both necessary and fragile. He noticed the orchid on the porch, the one I'd nearly killed twice but kept reviving. "Like people," he said. "They come back, even when you think they won't. His words landed deeper than he knew. We took our coffee to the porch. Mist clung to the grass, the sky washed in soft grey. We sat side by side, our mugs warming our hands. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. Then hesitated. "I had a weird dream." I laughed lightly. What dream isn't weird? But his gaze was steady. In the dream, I was sitting right here. And someone placed their hand on mine. My breath caught. "And?" "She didn't pull away," he said quietly. I stared at my lap, heart hammering. My hand inched, almost against my will, closer to his. Just a fraction. His eyes flicked down, then he set his mug aside and placed his hand gently over mine. Warm. Deliberate. I didn't pull away. The world seemed to stop. There was no kiss, no embrace, just that fragile connection, small yet enough to unravel everything I thought I knew. "Are you scared?" he whispered. "Of course," I admitted. "But not of this. I'm scared I've gotten too used to not feeling anything at all." We stayed like that, hands entwined, the morning air thick with something I couldn't name. Desire, yes, but more than that. It was being seen. Being wanted. The rest of the day passed like a dream. He cooked lunch, we talked about trivial things, laughed at nothing. Yet every glance was a conversation in itself. That night, under the glow of a desk lamp, Noah said softly, "You don't hide. You don't pretend. That's what makes you beautiful." I wanted to cry. Because for so long, I had been invisible even to myself. But I also knew one thing. If we crossed the line that night, there would be no going back. So I told him, if we don't stop tonight, tomorrow we won't even be able to share coffee without regret. He understood. We didn't kiss. We didn't go further. But the line had already been crossed, in a way that mattered just as much. When I woke at midnight and found him asleep on the couch, blanket slipping off his shoulder, I tucked it back over him. My fingers lingered. I whispered into the dark, "Thank you, for seeing me. Not as a wife. Not as a mother. But as a woman." The next morning, when he left, there were no promises, no hugs. Just a glance. One that carried more weight than words ever could. As his car disappeared down the gravel road, I stood on the porch, lavender swaying in the breeze. I realized something. Not every spark has to burn. Not every connection has to be named. Sometimes being seen, truly seen, is enough to remind you that you're still alive. Still human. Still worthy. If you've ever had a moment that made you question everything, made you feel alive in a way you didn't expect, leave a single dot in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe to Broken Vows, where we share the raw, untold stories that touch the heart and linger in the soul. Because sometimes, one story is enough to change everything.